Two of the most brutal and lore-heavy franchises of the modern era share more than just violence and complex hierarchies, because Game of Thrones and the John Wick saga have quietly overlapped through 5 actors who made the leap from the battlefields of Westeros to the shadowy underworld of the High Table, creating an unexpected casting bridge between medieval political chaos and modern assassin mythology. Let us start with Alfie Allen, who became a household name as Theon Greyjoy in Game of Thrones, a character defined by betrayal, humiliation, psychological torment, and eventual redemption. And while Theon's arc stretched across seasons and allowed Allen to explore vulnerability and resilience, his role in John Wick was explosive and short-lived as Yosef Tarasov, the entitled Russian gangster whose impulsive decision to kill John Wick's dog and steal his car triggered the entire franchise, proving that one reckless act can ignite a war and demonstrating Allen's ability to convincingly portray both tragic anti-hero and irredeemable instigator. Next is Ian McShane, who appeared in Game of Thrones for a single but impactful episode as Brother Ray, a former soldier turned peaceful spiritual leader whose murder served as the emotional catalyst for the Hound's return to violence. And although his screen time in Westeros was brief, McShane found long-term prominence in the John Wick universe as Winston Scott, the dignified yet calculating manager of the Continental Hotel, a sanctuary for assassins bound by strict rules, where his character walks a constant tightrope between loyalty to John Wick and allegiance to the High Table across multiple films, including John Wick Chapter 4, making him one of the saga's most morally complex figures. Another fascinating crossover is Jerome Flynn, whose portrayal of Bronn in Game of Thrones turned a secondary sellsword into a fan favorite thanks to his sharp humor, survival instincts, and opportunistic loyalty. Yet in John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum he played Barada, a powerful high-table representative whose arrogance and cruelty towards Sophia's dog sparked one of the film's most chaotic shootouts, highlighting Flynn's versatility in shifting from charming rogue to menacing authority figure without losing screen presence. Then there is Natalia Tena, who brought emotional grit to Game of Thrones as Osha, the wildling who began as a captive but became a fierce protector of the Stark children. And although her storyline was cut short in a later season, she re-emerged in the action world through John Wick Chapter 4 as Katya, the head of the German branch of the Ruska Roma, and John Wick's adopted sister, adding layers of family tension and cultural depth to a franchise often centered on codes of honor and revenge rather than blood ties. And her presence expanded the mythology of Wick's past beyond simple vengeance. Finally, George Georgiou appeared in Game of Thrones as Razdal Mo Iraz, one of the wise masters of Yunkai who resisted Daenerys Targaryen's demand to free the slaves, embodying rigid aristocratic power and entitlement, and later stepped into the John Wick world in Chapter 4 as the Elder, the highest authority connected to the High Table, whose brief but symbolically charged interaction with Wick marked a turning point in the Assassins' rebellion against the system, reinforcing Georgiou's talent for portraying figures who represent institutional control in stories about defiance and upheaval. What makes these casting crossovers so compelling is not simply the shared faces, but the shared tonal intensity, because both Game of Thrones and John Wick operate in worlds governed by codes, hierarchies, and consequences, where loyalty can be fatal and authority is constantly challenged, and these actors carried their gravitas, physical presence, and emotional weight from swords and dragons into tailored suits and silenced pistols without missing a beat, creating a subtle but powerful thread connecting two very different yet thematically aligned universes. Which of these crossovers surprised you the most, and do you think more Game of Thrones veterans should enter the John Wick universe in future chapters? Share your thoughts below and stay tuned for more deep dives into surprising franchise connections and casting crossovers.